The first thing you have to do before you move on to adding a bicone or beading any of the projects in the Crystal Ribbon series is master the basic underlying stitch. And this is a reversible diagonal peyote stitch. Sometimes you'll see it called slanted peyote stitch, but it's the same thing and it's reversible. So you have the option of having two different colours. So you have one colour on each side. You don't have to, but especially for learning, you will find it much easier to do that at first. And have two different colours that are quite different. That will really help you. This is not a stitch you want to try and run before you can walk. So it's worth spending the time mastering the underlying stitch before you learn how to put a bicone in, how to make any turns, or how to bead a project. Do spend a few minutes to do this. Otherwise, it will be much more complicated for you if you don't understand the rhythm of the underlying stitch and what you're doing. There is a separate sizing video which will talk you through different sizing, but I'm going to go through the width that works for when you come to add a bicone in. This is the minimum width to add a bicone and have the highlight pattern in there. So we're going to stick to that width, but watch the sizing video for how to play around with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an A bead and a B bead. If you're going to make a piece that zips and becomes a three-dimensional shape, then you want your A bead to be the colour that you want to sit inside. Now it's not essential, and when you watch the zipping video, I'll talk you through what to do if you've changed your mind or you just did it the other order, but it just saves you one extra step if you start with the colour you want to be inside. But again, it's not essential. And what we're going to do, we do one step which sets the width of the piece and gets us started, and then we repeat the same stitch again and again. So the first step has two parts to it. That's going to set our width and the number of stitches. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start by picking up two A beads and two B beads. I'm going to leave a tail so that I've got a comfortable length of thread to hold on to, and I'm going to circle through my two A beads. Oops. Just circle through those to make a little ring. And it's really important, it sounds silly, really important to remember which were your A, which were your B. Especially when we come to do any changes or any projects. If you get confused when you're following the instructions, it will tell you to add B beads or A beads, and you might have done a turn, so you know it gets more complicated. Really do keep track of which is A, which is B. Scribble down a note, put a little alphabet bead next to them, anything that helps you. But that's the first part of step one, picking up 2A, 2B, circle through the 2A. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to pick up 12A and then 12B. And because I'm picking up 12 of each colour, that gives me a piece that's 6 stitches wide. Because just like in other peyote stitch, the beads you pick up at first are going to set the 2 rounds or rows, depending what you're doing. So we're going to have 6 stitches, so I need to pick up 12 beads. And it's 12 of each one. So it's 2A, 2B, circle through the 2A, then 12A, 12B, and what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to loop it back around. I'm going to thread into the first B that I come across, and not where my tail is, the other one, into there, and then through the AB next to it, and I'm heading towards that loop. So I'm not going through the end AB, I'm not going for the end B, I'm going through the second A that I picked up, and that gets me ready to do my stitching. So by the end of step one, this is what I'm going to have. 2A, 2B, and I circle through the 2A, 12A, 12B, I go through 1B and 1A. Now I'm ready to carry on. Now, when I carry on the stitch, it's going to start to lay flat, the two colours together. At first it won't, it's going to be open in the centre. So I need to keep it flat, and it will really help me to see where I am. It's not too bad if your beads slightly twist around, but you've got to make sure you step up into the right bead. So do pay attention. What I'll do for this round is I'll swap colour so that you can see what I'm doing. So these will be my A, these will be my B, and then I'll go back soon to my original colours, just so you can see what's happening. But what I'm going to do now is the basic stitch. I'm going to peyote up here, 6 stitches. When I get to the end, I'm going to do an increase between my 2 colours, and then I'm going to do 6 stitches back, and then I have a step up. So I've swapped my colours, so these are my A beads now. I'm working along this loop, and I'm going to do 6 peyote stitches. Like I say, I'm just doing different colours so that you can keep an eye on what I'm doing. To help you learn the stitch, absolutely use different colours to get you started. It really is worthwhile putting the time in to learn the basic stitch before you try and do anything advanced with it. Otherwise you'll get in a real tangle. So 4, 5, and then 6, and it's 6 stitches because I picked up 12 beads. And if my counting was correct, that brings me out between my 2 colours, between my A and B. Now what I'm going to do is an increase, and it's by always increasing at one end of your work and decreasing at the other that makes your work slant. What I have to do my increase is I pick up an A and a B, and I'm doing it as a herringbone increase. It's not a peyote stitch. I'm coming out of one bead, I've picked up 2 beads, and I go straight into the next bead. So it would be an A and a B, and I go straight into the B bead. Get those sitting nicely. Now what I have to do is peyote stitch 6 bees back along here. Now I can work this direction, I can rotate my work so I'm working away from me, whatever is best for you. But what I don't want to do is keep this as a big open circle. Soon I'll start to get a bit confused if it's very wide open, so try and hold it flatter. But I've got to work back along here 6 stitches. So I've done 4, 5, and 6, and that takes me back nearly to the end. I'm not going all the way to the end. This is where I start to decrease at this end, and all I do to decrease, so I've come along here, you can see the pink, I've got 6 stitches, I've got the 2 that increase there, and then 6 B beads. That brings me back. When I finish my peyote stitch, all I now do is I have to step up, and so I've got to go through 2 beads to step up. So I'm coming out of this B bead here, I go to the A that's next to it, it's the same height, I go through that one and the next one, the first stitch that I put of my A beads when I started that round. That's my step up, so I always go to the one that's the same height, then up into the first bead. I don't want to accidentally come down here and be working on the base, so it's really important for that round, keep an eye on where you're going and step up. I'm going to put it tighter, and now I really want to press it flat. Don't have it open, because what will happen is you'll start to work around the other edge. Take the time just to press it flat, make sure everything's even, you've got the same number of beads sticking up each side. Like I say, as I continue, it's going to start to hold it flat and closed anyway, but you help it along at first. So I'm going to go back to my original colours for now, and then we'll see how it's growing. But it's the same thing now. I'm always going to do 6, 2, 6, step up. So it's 6 stitches along here, and soon you won't have to count, because you know you've done your 6 stitches, because there's nowhere else for you to peyote stitch. You'll run out of spaces. But it might help you to count out those beads before you start. 5, 6. Now's my increase, so it's an A and a B to bring me back down the other side. So it's A and a B. Again, it's not a peyote stitch, it's a herringbone increase. So I come out the first of the pair, I've picked up my 2 beads, and I go into the second of the pair. And now I'm going to work back down this side with 6 stitches. Oops. Number 4, 5, 6, and now you'll see I've reached the end because I can't do a peyote stitch, so I know I've done my 6 and I'm ready for my step up. So this is a little decrease that we do at the end. You know, we don't keep pressing through to the end. So again, to do my step up, I'm coming out of a B bead just naturally where I came to when I did my last peyote stitch. I go to the A bead that's next to it, the same height, the same row, however you think of it, and I go through 2 to step up, and that brings me back ready to do a peyote stitch on this side. I'll change colour again just so that you can see what I'm doing, and I'll swap. Let's see, I've got some different colours here. So I'm going to work up this side. I'll do red for my A beads, but it's the same stitching. It's 6, 2, 6, nothing, or 6, 2, 6, step up. If ever I've lost stitches or gained stitches along these lengths, something has gone wrong. So take it back. So I can see I've got 5, number 6. That brings me out the top. So now I need to do my increase. So it's going to be an A and a B. I'll swap to orange for my B, and I'm going to head back down. And then it's going to be 6 stitches back down this way. And you can see it starts to lay flat and it's much more closed now. So it's like any beading, it's tricky at first. You haven't got much to hold on to, much to look at, and it's tricky to see what's happening. It takes a few rounds before it really starts to fall into place. But do spend the time letting this come together and be what it needs to be, and learn the stitch before leaping ahead. So that's my 6th stitch. Step up, I've got to come over. I can just see I'm coming out that blue bead here. I'm coming to the bead that's the same height and step up through 2. So now I'm going to go back to my original colours, and you'll see how it progresses. So if you need to practice in lots of different colours at first, absolutely do. It really is worth putting the time in to learn the stitch, because if you try and do the more advanced techniques, more advanced projects without understanding this, you'll struggle and spend a lot of time trying to do that. Whereas if you understand the basic stitch first, you'll fly along a lot quicker doing the more advanced things. So I did 6, then it's 2 to head back, and then 6, and then it's going to be a step up. That's my 6, and then over the same height up through 2 to step up. So it brings me up so that I'm in place to do the peyote stitch. So I'm going to carry on with my regular A and B colours and do a few more rounds. And so at the moment I'm holding my work steady so that you can see what I'm doing, but I'll show you how I sometimes actually bead it, because you might find one way physically works best for you. That's my 6 and my 2 to increase, so that's always my increase there, and then 6. So I've always held it steady and worked back towards me, but you might want to rotate your work in your hands and always work away from you. Everyone works differently, holds their work differently, so do whatever works for you. You might find it much easier to keep turning your work in your hands. And then I might turn it again when I get to the end, ready to step up. But you can see now it's not that big open circle it was at first. So pressing it closed right at the start really helps you. If it does look like it's funny, you've worked on one end, you know, started to work on the other side, or you run out of spaces to put your 6 beads, something has gone wrong. So it's worth taking it back and holding it very tight to get yourself started. There's my increase. So it's that combination of always increasing at one end and always decreasing at the other that gets that slanted peyote stitch going. So I've got to come down the other side. That's my 6 and I'm ready to step up. And I'll do another round. So what you want to do is do this stitch until you don't have to think about it. That it just becomes fully natural. You can see what you're looking at. You understand what you're doing. You can put it down and come back to it and still understand what you're looking at. It's really important that you do all of that before you try to move on to do anything more complicated. And this basic stitch is absolutely beautiful just by itself. You can make beautiful bracelets and bangles. You don't have to learn how to do a turn. You don't have to learn how to put a bicone in. It makes beautiful pendants. You know, watch the videos for the individual projects and you'll see some of the things that you can make just with this stitch. So I've done just a basic stitch. So that's what you want to do. Dive in with at least 2 different colour beads, other beads if you want to practice some basic rounds understanding it. Bead it until you understand it. Then the next thing you'll do is learn how to turn and then think about more advanced things you want to move on to. I've got to finish by stepping up. I haven't done my step up at the end, so always make sure you step up. Always make sure you're ready to immediately dive in with a peyote stitch. Now the first thing we're going to do with this is count how many rounds or rows. There was a separate video about counting, but it's good while we're doing this just to see how easy it is to count. You always want to count your basic rounds or rows by looking where your A and B beads are joined together. So I've got an edge here and an edge over here. And I can count them looking down at it like this or looking at it from the side. It doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is count along the edge. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows there. And I'll double check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You will have a funny pair at the start from where you began the stitch. They still count. They're a separate round or row at the end there. So again, if I show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I've done a small piece, 9 rounds or rows long. You want to do as many as needed until you can do it without thinking, and then you'll have mastered the basic stitch.